The last member of the foundation to speak at a TED event was my boss, Bill Gates. And he generated a lot of conversation by releasing a jar of live mosquitoes into the audience in order to make a point about malaria. Now today, I'm not going to release a swarm of live mosquitoes, but I do want to pick up on his point, how to unleash something different, the potential in every child by following the evidence. But to do that, we have to do the opposite of what we do in global health. In global health, we work to prevent disease from spreading. But in education, we want good practice to be viral. We want to make sure that it spreads. You know, my own path to college was pretty rough. And I grew up in a place that was similarly and aptly named Falls of Rough, Kentucky. Not much was expected of me because not much was expected of anyone. And so I wasn't pushed very hard in school. After all, that would have been cruel. I was too poor to succeed. But I did well enough. And in my junior year, I made friends with a young girl in my high school business class who refused to accept the inequities between us and who pushed me to go to college. And so I did. That chance friendship changed my life. On one hand, stories like mine are inspirational. On the other hand, they're tragic. Because what about all those millions of children out there who aren't lucky enough to have someone to push them to go to college? And it's clear that many kids in this country aren't lucky enough. 1 million students who enter 9th grade each fall fail to graduate with their peers 4 years later. 7,000 drop out of school every day. Many who do graduate don't develop the skills they need to earn a post-secondary degree or a certification. It's clear that in education, this equation for success has many facets, but there's one thing we need to take out of this equation, and that's luck. How do you eradicate luck? You replace it with evidence. Every profession in this country uses evidence to make informed decisions. In education, sometimes we do the opposite. Sometimes we ignore the actual evidence that we've had for 30 years, and our policies do just the opposite of what we know works. For example, we know that when it comes to improving student outcomes, master's degrees have almost no value. They may have value for other reasons, but not when it comes to improving student achievement. We know that certification doesn't make a difference. It doesn't matter if you go through a traditional certification program or you go through an alternative certification program. There are still teachers who fall in the top quartile of performance, and there are still teachers who fall in the bottom quartile in each of those pathways. And we know that after 3 years, seniority doesn't really matter. And we know that past performance has huge value. Yet what do we reward? Master's degrees, certification, seniority. And what do we not reward? Past performance, which is the biggest predictor of whether students will be successful in the classroom with teachers. So in the foundation, we're trying to find new evidence and build on the evidence that we already have in 3 areas: learning, teaching, and innovation. And yesterday afternoon, Jazz Magic gave me a perfect example for one of the things that we believe as a foundation is important for this country to do, and that's to create common standards. They talked about how those common standards in each of their profession actually gave them a platform, a springboard for innovation, for using their genius and creativity and ingenuity to do their own thing, to make their work special and powerful. We believe in this country we need to have common standards that are fewer, clearer, higher, that really drive toward college readiness, that are internationally benchmarked, and that give us this springboard for possibility. We also think we need to put forward better instructional tools. Bill Gates said it best. Doctors aren't left alone in their offices to test and design new medicines. They have a whole medical research community behind them supporting them, and our teachers deserve that kind of support as well. They deserve us to find new instructional practices like Ken talked about yesterday and to spread those practices across the country. We want to build on existing tools that we have and make them better, like better assessments, better course designs, but we also want to find new tools that accelerate students' learning. We want to think about new generation models of school, like the digital school that you saw yesterday, that engages students in the new technologies that they use every day so easily. And we want to make sure that we help test, evaluate, make sure that those practices that are proven to be effective spread all across this country. But more specifically, we're really focused on teaching and the effectiveness of teachers. Because if you boiled down education into one sentence, it would probably be this: nothing. Nothing is as important as an effective teacher. Teachers have an undeniable impact. And in this country, if we could make sure that every student had a high quartile teacher, a top performing teacher every year, we would erase the achievement gap in this country in 3 years. That's actually an inspiring statistic, because that means with great teachers, there's nothing in this country our kids can't do. So we're asking ourselves two really important questions and putting our investments, a large, significant part of our investments, in fact, $500,000, 100 million, let's say $500 million. And make me not be quite so tongue-tied this morning. So let's say over the next few years, we're going to put $500 million into answering these two questions. What makes a teacher great? Because if I polled this room right now and asked everyone that question, there would be as many answers as there are individuals in the room. So we think we should study great teachers. We should find out what makes them their most effective. We should start to understand both the art and the complexity. And in doing those studies, we should make sure that in fairness to our kids and our teachers, we're looking at multiple indicators. When I talk to teachers all across this country, they want to be treated like the professionals they are. They don't want their evaluations based on one-shot assessments or popularity contests or specific and unfounded judgments by supervisors. They want it to be based on multiple indicators that truly reflect what great teaching looks like in the classroom, and we agree. So this fall, we've launched a research study that's going on in places like New York City, Charlotte, Mecklenburg, Hillsborough, Florida, and yes, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And in cooperation with teachers, and in cooperation with those teachers, we're videotaping about 4,000 of them multiple times over the next few years, and having experts in instruction look at what makes them effective and how that teaching correlates to student outcomes. We're also asking students what's been most helpful to them in classrooms and looking at student work. And in the second year of this study, we'll actually look at teachers' content skills, and we'll randomly assign teachers to classrooms with similar students, the pedagogical equivalent of a double-blind study, so that when we're finished, we'll have a multiple set of indicators that we can say reflects both the art and the science of teaching, and that teachers and researchers both can respect. And then we want to concentrate on this question about how do we get a great teacher in front of every classroom in America. So we've invited a number of districts across the country to think about how we might overturn 30 years of policy based on what we know didn't work in favor of what we know does. And those districts and a set of charter management organizations have stepped up in some really bold and courageous ways. They've formed collaborative plans with their superintendent, their school board, and their union present. And in collaboration, they've decided to take on some common goals. Not only adopting a measure of teacher effectiveness that does the things I just talked about, but redesigning their evaluation and feedback processes to reflect that. raising the tenure bar so that it's a more meaningful milestone in teachers' lives, and once they get it, that they're compensated appropriately. Letting performance drive compensation throughout teachers' careers. Designing new career opportunities for teachers so that they don't have to leave the classroom in order to get leadership opportunities and contribute more broadly to the school. And making sure that the kids who need teachers the most get access to them. And I know that every one of you in this room will want to keep your fingers crossed because Pittsburgh's in the running for that set of investments. And we'll know in a few weeks where in this country those bold, courageous plans will take root and flourish. In the foundation and education, we're really driven by two very straightforward but ambitious goals. One, we want to be sure that in this country, at least 80% of our students graduate from high school college ready. Making sure that we understand that high school isn't high enough. That to earn a market wage, you need to be able to attend a 2 or 4 year college, a great technical skill, or get a job with upwardly mobile training that allows you to have the quality of life that we desire in this country. And two, we know that just exiting high school able to do those things and getting access to 2 or 4 year colleges or great technical skills or certification that does that for you isn't enough. You have to complete it. And so our second goal is doubling the number of young people who earn that post-secondary credential in one of those forms. And like you, we think about that not just by the numbers, even though what I've concentrated on this morning is effectiveness and evidence. We think about that little girl or boy who sits out in a place like I did called Falls of Rough, or that young boy or girl, or the millions of boys and girls who live in cities across this country, close to commerce and industry, but they might as well, like I was in Falls of Rough, be millions of miles away. And we believe that if we do these things in education, if we follow the evidence, building on the evidence we have now and leading to new evidence, that those students will set an environment in which we expect a great deal of them, that they will be engaged in the ways that people have talked about all through the course of yesterday, whether it was Ken talking about instruction or Katie talking about the digital school. That they will have access to new opportunities and innovations that accelerate their learning, and to common standards that make sure that we're driving toward everyone getting to equity of outcome. And we believe in doing that, we can have kids succeed not by luck, as I did, but by design. Now, despite all of this, some of them may not be as lucky as I was, but if we do this well, they won't have to be.